Jake, the Utah Utes throttled Oregon State. Are they in control of the Pac-12?
Yes. Utah is in control of the Pac-12 right now. I think that defense is primarily why they're having success. I think that, we talked about all last week about how, Utah's defense was the thing that stirs the drink for Utah, meaning that if the defense comes out and can, keep Oregon State from running all over the place, if they can keep them in check, they're going to win this game handily. And that's exactly what happened. Now, they didn't keep, Oregon State under 100 yards. They didn't dominate Oregon State on the ground with their running defense. But what they did do is they kept them in check. And I felt like the passing game for Oregon State was non-existent. It was not alive. Like, Utah shut that down. So when you look at this score and you realize Utah's passing the 40-point threshold and they're dominating this team, that's exactly why. Because they made Oregon State's offense one-dimensional and they didn't really have to worry about the passing game. And I think when you do that to teams, one way or the other, you're going to be in a good position. Like if you shut down the run and force them to be a pass-only team or vice versa, you're going to be in a good spot. So that's why I say, when I look at some of the other teams around, the Pac-12, right now, everyone's saying that USC is amazing. A lot of people are saying that UCLA is legit. I hear that every year about UCLA. Heard it last year, debunked it last year. UCLA was nothing by the end of the year. So to me, I don't see a team right now that can manhandle Utah. I think Utah, like against SC, let's say, Utah is going to have a hell of a fight on their hands, but I think they're in that game. I don't know that they win that game, but I think they're in that game. So I say, I think you're in control if you're able to beat pretty much every team, and there's only one team that's questionable in USC.
Yeah, I think when you look at Utah, I mean, clearly Clark Phillips was the story of this game with the 3 picks and the pick 6, and I think you could be right about UCLA. I'm more of a UCLA believer than most. I thought their win this weekend was over Washington was nothing short of spectacular, but I also don't think there's any doubt that Utah is in control of the Pac-12. I mean, again, Clark Phillips was spectacular. Cole Bishop, while he doesn't have the stats, I thought played another incredible game. This Utah defense is one of the best in the country and arguably is the best defense in the country. Alabama probably has something to say about that, Jake, but I think when you look at what Oregon State brought to the yard on Saturday, I thought that Utah handled them exceptionally well. And I think, again, this is a typical Kyle Whittingham team that's built on defense. And if you happen to score some points offensively, that's fine too.
Yeah, and I think that when you have those teams, I mean, it's the same conversation year in and year out. And clearly, Whit has found a way to have more success with it in recent years than in the big picture. Like, I think when I look at this team, I could say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Utah was in a major bowl game at the end of the year. That said, I think you got to, again, go out and continue to beat like these quality opponents. I mean, if you can continue to get good linebacker play that really makes it difficult for teams to pass in the 10 to 15 yard range, that's ultimately what led to Oregon State's struggles, in my opinion. You talk about elite speed last year at linebacker. Now you have that same sort of setup again this year where you've got good speed, good athleticism, really high IQ players that understand angles and where they need to be. And really, I look at this season so far, and if I said to you right now, hey, this defense that you saw over the weekend, it was the same defense that played Florida in week 1. Are you really telling me that Utah wouldn't have beat Florida if they played this way against Florida in week 1? So that's why I think people are saying this team is legit, and that's why I give Utah more credit than teams like UCLA, because I don't think UCLA is anything to write home about. They are a good team, but they need to continue to prove that they can be the best teams in the conference. To me, Utah's already proven that. Utah's done that. You know what you have in them. So that's why I say right here today, it just feels like Utah's got a good grip on things.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any doubt about it. My question is, can this offense keep up with USC? I know I've said that every week on this show when we talk Utah football, but yeah, I think that's the big thing. This is one of the, if not the best defense in the country, Utah. My question is, can Cam Rising in this offense get enough out across the board on offense to contend with a team like a USC? because, again, it might not be pretty every week, but USC is a dominant football team for large swaths of each of their games. And I've seen just about all of their games this year. And I'm telling you, Caleb Williams and that offense are elite. And I just don't know that Utah's offense can score with USC. That's the only question I have.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how good Utah's defense is. USC is going to score 28 points a week. They are. They are that good offensively. And my question still remains, can the Utah Utes score enough points to win? I don't know the answer to that question. I still am not impressed with these wide receivers. And I want more from Devon Vele. I do maintain that Brant Keithy's loss is a big one for Utah. I don't know that they can score enough points. That's my only concern. I also feel like there's some dysfunction in this running game right now. I don't know what's going on with Tavion Thomas. I don't know why he's not the same back he was last year, but it doesn't feel like he is. All I do know is it's shocking they're only a 3-point favorite going to the Rose Bowl against UCLA on Saturday. That has to be surprising to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's you know, it's classic Utah. Like, Utah seemingly always finds a way to be an underdog or not be given enough credit or to be discounted. And I think that, you know, again, it's this whole mentality about being a defensive first team. When you're a defensive first team, the truth of the matter is you don't put out nearly as many big highlights that make it on SportsCenter every week.
Correct.
And so people are like, oh, well, yeah, it was Oregon State, even though a week ago those same people were saying Oregon State's the best thing since sliced bread and they're winning a national championship. You know, so that's what happens to Utah. And I've, you know, the more you follow this program, the more you hang with them, like, you can see that it happens, and the ebb and flow typically doesn't ebb, it only flows for Utah. And my problem with that is that this defense is quality. This defense, I think, will make USC's life very difficult. Now, I tend to agree with you. You're probably not keeping USC under 28 or 30 points in a game right now because they are that good. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if Utah created a couple turnovers. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they made it a really tight game where you're heading into the fourth quarter and it's a field goal or one possession game. That, to me, is what you're hoping for if you're Utah. But again, I still maintain, when you look at Utah's offense, I still can't confidently say, hey, Devon Vele's the guy, or Enos is the guy, or who, you know, whichever name you want to bring up. There's not that bona fide, like, he is open guy regularly for Cam. And I think if you want to beat USC, you have to have that.
Well, and I also think USC gets Washington State this week at the Coliseum. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
The only game that USC really struggled in was in Corvallis against Oregon State. It just feels like there's a lot of questions about Utah's offense, and I don't have a whole lot of questions about USC's offense. I really don't. It's weird offensively for Utah, and I would love your comments on that. It's weird to me that offensively Utah's running the ball by committee, and it just feels like, I don't know, you know, like, I don't know if they're trying to prove a point. I don't know if Tavion's in the doghouse, which, I mean, certainly it feels like he is.
Right.
And I don't know how Tavion Thomas is going to fix that. You're not going to win this conference running the ball with 7 different guys.
Right.
That's just not a recipe for success, because you can plot your way down the field and you can try to win games 28-21, but you have a team at USC that routinely scores 40 points, and they did it against, whether it's Fresno State, you know, Arizona State this weekend, they put up 42. Sure, Arizona State sucks. They still can compete, and it is impressive to me what USC is doing. Now, Washington State is another good test, but that game's at home, and then you can just write it down. USC at Utah, I think, is for the Pac-12 championship. I do. I think it will set the direction. It will set this conference a sail for what's going to happen into November, and whoever wins this game, I think very likely is going to be a top 10 team.
Right.
I think whoever wins that game, I mean, you look at where the Utes are now at number 11. If they beat UCLA this weekend, they're a top 10 team. If they then go on, come home, beat USC, I mean, there's a real good chance that's a top 7 team at Utah.
Yeah.
Are you going to beat USC with 7 different guys running the football?
And
that's a huge question.
And how does it look, too? Because that also matters in college football.
It does.
Is it a grind it out, like big moment? Like, is it a BYU Baylor type game where Utah is chasing down, USC and they get a defensive stop and whatever? Like, is it that type of feel, or is it a surprising game where Utah's defense does in fact lock up USC's offense? Which again, I tend to agree with you. I think the odds of that happening are pretty low, but I just have this feeling about this game. Like, I think they're going to manhandle USC. Or UCLA. I mean, I have no doubt about that. I think, all these high flying, jumping highlights out of DTR, like you're doing things against teams that you're not going to be able to do against Utah, man.
I am telling you now. DTR. And you and I have disagreed on this for 3 years now.
Here's my problem. Here's my issue.
How are we still beefing over DTR?
Because he hasn't done anything. What has he done? He hasn't won anything. You haven't done anything.
He's one guy on a Chip Kelly football team.
But again, okay, what's a Chip Kelly football team? What are his hallmarks?
Mediocre, excuse my French. Mediocre.
But they are big time, high flying offensive teams. That's what you know about Chip Kelly.
Yeah, but you get now. And here's the difference. Zach Charbonnet is a legitimate running back.
Yeah.
He's a guy that DTR can work with. You look at their numbers, what stands out to me is Jake Bobo had another really impressive game. And I just think when I look at the way that they I'm telling you, UCLA is legit. I don't know. Can they stop anybody? I have no flipping idea. But what I do know is they gave up 32 to Washington, but they scored 40 and they won the game. And it was scintillating. And Washington tried to mount a furious comeback, and the Utes are better than UCLA. But don't come in here with this idea that it's going to be easy and somehow, that somehow, it's going to be 52-10. And
I don't think they're going to kick their ass by 3 possessions, but what I do think is it's going to be a 2-possession game at the end of the day.
No.
I think that you're going to control.
This feels like a 32-28, 28-24 kind of game.
No.
This feels like one possession. And because you cannot, how should I say this? You cannot underestimate the impact that DTR and Charbonnet have running the football. And I'm not saying UCLA is even an elite football team, but that's a good football team, and they're capable. And by the way, for the first time this season, I can say the home field advantage at the Rose Bowl was a factor. And I know it's crazy. That crowd was into the game. That crowd, man. And it was mighty.
Yeah.
And part of it was that Washington traveled. I totally understand that. UCLA had a home field advantage this weekend.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you, don't just write it off like it ain't no thing. That's what I'm selling. That's what I'm telling you. Let's see. San Diego State says disregard that report. Okay. Cohen Wiley. Hey, my guy Cohen Wiley. By the way, Cohen Wiley at the Harmons at Mountain View Village. Thank you. The Harmons at Mountain View Village. You Wiley stepped up and said, "Hey, are you Monty?" I was like, "Yep." We took a picture. We had some fun. Like, good to see you, Cohen Wiley. I really appreciate you saying hello. We love meeting people. Jake is kind of a hermit. He never leaves the house because his girlfriend doesn't let him. So, you know,
folks, that's what it is.
That's what it is. So he never leaves the house, but Mrs. Monty and I were rolling through Harmon's the other day, and it was amazing to see Cohen. And it seems like every day, 2-3 times a week, like we're seeing people like, "Hey, are you?" Yeah, that's me. I'm the good-looking one.
This pleasure.
You know, feel free to say hello. If you see us out on the streets here in Salt Lake, say hello. We love meeting people. So, Cohen, good to see you. Snuko, what's up? Mike Chase, how are you? Kenai Johnson says, top of the morning, fellas. I missed the Utes game, but seeing the score, does Utah still have a chance at a playoff spot? Absolutely they do, without question. Neville 93, my guy, I hope the baby's well. Kurt Meyer says, morning all. It was a great deer hunt. Or a good deer hunt.
Okay.
By the way, we were riding the chairlift up at PCMR this weekend.
Right.
And a deer ran right out in front of us.
That's cool.
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. The air's a little more chilly. Drove over Guardsman Pass, saw the colors. Next weekend, if you care at all, and by the way, Utah sucks. Please don't move here. It's terrible.
Right.
But if you love the wilderness and you love the changing leaves and the colors, Next weekend, I got to believe we're 50, 60% of the way there color-wise.
Yeah.
Got to drive over Guardsman Pass next weekend. Cannot wait. So good to see you. Colton Bitten, Utah about to be tested the next 2 weeks. Well, and the LA swing has always been kind of the defining part of the schedule.
Yeah.
As we talk Pac-12 and the Utah Utes on the Monty Show, presented by the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. I think the LA swing has always been a test for Utah with the UCLA and USC. The interesting thing is now, I think you're seeing that Utah's expected to win those games.
Yeah.
And that's different. That's a lot more expectation. So, I think you're right, Colton, that the next 2 weeks could be interesting. Jeremy Severi says, morning, FYI, since we're on the trend of pronouncing names correctly, my last name is Severe. Oh, Jeremy Severe.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to go France.
Okay.
Parlez-vous français, my guy.
Dude is saying pronounce my name correctly.
Jeremy Severe pronouncing his name wrong is a severe problem. Eric and Raleigh, should the Dolphins be contracted? Probably. Jake said doo-doo. Yeah. Tanner Plummer, oh God, the Eagles won again, so Tanner's probably on his high horse. Tanner's like taking shots lately.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how many people know I'm a huge soccer fan.
Right.
Like, I pay attention. I'm a Chelsea football fan. Like, I'm all about. Who's already texting you, man?
Nobody. It's the CNN update about hurricanes.
We got to talk about Ron DeSantis in Fort Myers, Florida later.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? Anyway. So Tanner's a guy that likes to take shots. He's like, oh, yeah, now you're paying attention, RSL. No, you just assume. Like, I tweeted that RSL is really disappointing because I actually watched some of the RSL match the other night. And, of course, they lost. I mean, they drew, but they lost. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, they're underperforming. And Tanner's like, well, now you pay attention. No, you just assume that I haven't been paying attention. Tanner's like the salty guy lately.
Right.
And I don't understand it. Lopes fan Gabe, what's up? Exploring with Ben and Sam. Puts a bunch of mallard ducks there.
Okay.
Tanner says UCLA did beat the 15th ranked Washington Huskies, but they're probably not going to do much the rest of the season.